Sí, sí. Hola, ¿sí? ¿Bien?
Mais c'est sur l'aspect juridique. Hein. C'est... Ouais. Non, mais je vous impose. Vous avez déjà accès à ce sujet avec moi.
Non, bonjour, j'ai assez suivi avec Ah oui, non, mais c'est clair.
Yeah, that's right. Not allowed to. Why be so mean? Comes together. Street
Like,
nobody's driving.
there.
Vivía aquí en
Ma sì, me acaban de fichar para sustituir al renegro este que no había preparado. Eso. Vamos a ver.
Laura, eso es lo que quiere la comisión. Bueno, yo como la comisión quiere pero a través del ciclo de la es el futuro de la expulsión de basura en el mundo entero. Una expulsión sencilla, como ella da arreglamos a arreglar. Claro. Lo sé, la palma de pero lo que decía se pegó ¿entiendes? No, claro. Entonces yo decía
esa pareja.
Pero me vine así como baño, alguno que se calentó, para que quiera trabajar en Canary Islands, right? Y luego hice un poco en Ricardo, Alex, en la Universidad de Zaragoza. Y trabajaba siempre con una compañía, bueno, trabajaba siempre con una compañía norteamericana que también tuve como certificación que usaba toda la consultoría. Pero quiero focalizar en la parte presencial, como el máster. Ahora está ahí.
We are here, no? With Teresa.
Bueno, ya se lo sé. Y aquí había
Bueno, y en España.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we just wait 3 minutes to give the last chance to those who went out to have coffee. And then we will start, okay? So 3 last minutes and off we go.
Sí, eso fue un desastre. Ya están con juicio. Un placer. Las personas de esta señora. Perfecto.
Porque Ángel te está diciendo, no sé, hace 10 minutos
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this after the lunch session, the most deadly session normally. But I think this is the session that many of us have actually come to hear today. We already talked broadly this morning about how islands are special places to serve as labs for innovative and pioneering clean energy solutions for the EU and beyond, and how they have become frontrunners in clean energy transition. Bringing the best available technologies to the islands is clearly a key part of the solution to achieve this goal, to effectively tackle the challenges of insularity and fossil fuel dependence through fostering the best use of locally available and abundant renewable resources. And we are exactly at the point where swift progress in clean energy technologies, together with their increasing affordability and efficiency, can bring a long-awaited acceleration of these developments. We are modernizing the framework and providing a toolbox for the development of renewable energies in Europe through the new legislation, in particular the revised Renewable Energy Directive, and very soon the new electricity market design. But to put this framework into motion, we need technologies and we need companies. They are crucial to the success. So now I have the pleasure to give the floor to our guests representing technology providers. We will be interested to know from them how the technology they represent has so far been contributing to the decarbonization on islands, and how they see this role evolving in the future, what is in the pipeline. I will then start with asking Wiebke Krüger, Head of Project Management and Operations at SMA Sunbelt Energy, to present her case.
Thank you very much. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we have one common goal: clean energy for European islands. We have heard that we need to raise the renewable energy share very fast while maintaining its resilience of the existing infrastructure. It's a pleasure for me to present you today a real-life example of a Caribbean island where we implemented a hybrid system consisting of solar PV and lithium-ion storage with a power management system and an energy management system. I'm working as a project manager for SMA Sunbelt Energy in this project, the 100% daughter of SMA Solar Technology AG. SMA is the worldwide leading manufacturer for PV inverters and storage inverters, with a global installed base in operation of 65 gigawatt. SMA Sunbelt Energy was founded to focus entirely on off-grid application and island applications. And so we're coming back to this little island in the Caribbean Sea, next to St. Martin, what we heard before. And for the 4,000 people on this island, a load is required of 2 megawatt. We installed the double capacity of solar PV, more than 4 megawatt. And a lithium-ion-based storage system of 5.5 megawatt to take over all grid services formerly done by the diesel engine. So we can say the island is supplied by 100% solar, or even more, for more than 10 hours over the day. At night, it switches back to diesel operation, and it's a fully automated system based on different key performance indicator. It's all regulated. With this technique, we are saving 1.7 million liters of diesel fuel oil every year. It's an equivalent to 4,500 tons of CO2. And I'm really proud to say that these were the design target figures. So this is what we had to deliver. And after exactly 1 year of operation, I can confirm that we're even overperforming and we're matching exactly our forecasts in terms of production. Let me summarize the benefits. Please go to the next slide. Working? Okay, perhaps, yeah. Let me summarize the benefits of this technology. So first of all, solar. It's an old technology. It's the cheapest of what we have. We have seen prices of less than 5 euro cents per kilowatt hour in Germany in the auctions, and it's everywhere available. So with SMA Sunbelt Energy, we have a partner network in more than 40 countries. The biggest advantage from my side is that it's modular. So we work with the generator control system manufacturers and the main manufacturers of storage solutions to integrate it to one system. We even have a cooperation going with one of the leading wind turbine manufacturers, and the target is to gradually expand the island grids and allow to switch off the diesel generator and conduct all these grid services. I would like to add here that we're using the same hardware in all our grid-connected storage activities as well. So it's more a software change that allows you to gradually connect and change the operational behavior of the system. So for instance, the biggest storage project in the European Union is based on the same technology. The next point is, as I said, the good predictivity, the forecasts and the yield. And irradiation data is available and we can match it very accurately. You will have to do a grid study, this is for sure, This needs to be accurate, but this is for all our technologies here. The next point, I was asked not to be technical, but it is technical. We're competing here on a technical floor. And it's the sheer quality of the grid that this machine is providing. The frequency and the voltage are better maintained than in the European continental grid. The system serves also as a giant UPS for the system, so at night, when the diesel generators are running and one should accidentally fail, the system kicks in within milliseconds to prevent power outages and blackouts. This happened over the last year 7 times. The next point is rather evident. With cutting the running hours of diesel generators, we reduce also drastically the maintenance cost. We do not have any flywheels or dump loads or any other further supporting architecture that could be a point of failure. I want to highlight 2 factors of success that I found pretty impressive from this project, coming from the local utility Suco. So they installed a rainwater catchment system under the modules, this providing them 2.6 million liters of fresh water. It allows the island to restart its agricultural activities, and it's a nice side effect for that particular installation. Another point was that the whole tender process was structured in a way that the amount of energy fed in to the meter was tendered with 6.4 gigawatt hours per year. And this allowed all the bidders to be creative and offer a techno-economically optimized solution, plus the responsibility, so you didn't have separate contractors with difficult interfaces. This was very successful from my side. So I shall give you the best wishes and an invitation also from the Managing Director, Fred Kubolai of the local utility Stuco, who invites you all to come and see. If this way is a bit too long, I have also a list of references. We won a lot of prizes, a lot of media articles with more figures, and there's a 4-minute video clip that gives you more insight on this project. Just contact me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was very, very efficient. I think the sun is sort of the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about renewables. But for the islands, the very next one is the sea itself. So let me welcome Mr. José Joaquim Brito, who will be speaking on behalf of the Ocean Energy Europe, but also OCAN, the Oceanic Platform of the Canaries. We will have the chance to have questions at the end of the session, so do come up with the questions as the speakers go.
So, first of all, thank you very much for having me today here. I am representing today to the Ocean Energy Europe, Remy Gruet, the CEO couldn't be here, and I would like to talk a bit about the association, also about the vision and mission, and later on I would like also to talk a bit about how the companies that are developing different technologies on marine energies could focus more on the island issue. So, Ocean Energy Europe is the largest world association on marine energies. It involves more than 120 entities, including major utilities and also research centers in Europe. So the vision of the association is having in 2015 100 gigawatts of marine energies in the water. So that means energy from waves, energy from tidal, from salinity gradients, also from thermal gradients. So I have to say that most of the technologies that we have now in different stages of maturity, more than 100 different technologies moving on. Still in a process of convergence, so there is still several approaches, and one of the things that the companies have to do is just try to have a common standard and approach. So by now, the TRLs, the maturity level that is used in order to see if the technology is ready or not for the market is varying, is changing from the different approaches. But tidal is much more closely to the markets. Is already most of the area where they have already deployed devices and are in the North Sea, but also in Canada and in other areas. At international level, there is a lot of activity going on, of course, in the North Sea, but also in Chile, in Japan, in China, many different places in Canada. So the next years we are going to see a lot of evolution and changing in the technology. So over there you can see, for example, some of these for these devices, especially MyGen, for example, in Scotland or in Canada or in Netherlands. So I also would like to say now that in relation with the implementation, there are two main directions. One direction is the one that is trying to get the energy from the high energy seas, places where the resource is abundant and where the objective of the companies is trying to reduce the cost and reduce and levelize the cost of the energy that will compete with other renewables and with traditional. But also there is another approach that is using niche markets where, because political reasons, because practical reasons, where these technologies can go through the first early stage to the markets, and the projects could be bankable. So the islands is a great opportunity because the problems, the high cost of the production of electricity and the energy there is really an opportunity for the marine energy devices and the companies there. But also for us, what is important is not only the development of the technology, it's the creation of an industry. And that is also quite important for the islands. So in the islands, we not only are looking for providing the needs of electricity or water, we have to fix there the citizens, the talents. We have to create economical activity around the sea. That is where we have the primary focus. So we see the marine energies not only as a way to provide part of the energy mix, but also a way to generate synergies and use the energy driver in order to create the first stages of the industry, of marine energy industry. So in order to do that, we need certain conditions, and the companies need certain conditions. The companies are not bringing their technologies to the islands if we don't have certain kind of size. I mean, if all the islands are split together as just very small markets, but if we combine it together, that is much more attractive for the companies. If these networks, if they have common standards or common approaches in relation with environmental questions, in relation with permit and consenting, in relation with incentive, fiscal incentives, for example, other kind of incentive. So that is a quite different issue, and that is the way in which the companies can look at the energies at the islands as a market, as a much more attractive market. So I think that is quite important also that in the islands there is already a feeling that the islands have to pay because they are dependent on oil today. So they have we have here in Canary Islands, for example, a lot of subsidies. Here you can see, for example, the test site. We have a lot of subsidies that are going in order to have the price of energy cheaper. So that is an opportunity to use this amount of money in order to make the transition and doing attraction of the technology associated with marine energy. So marine energy also is an opportunity to work together with other blue growth activities. So the combination of marine energy with aquaculture, with other activities, even with touristic activities, that is a great opportunity in the islands, in which bringing together these 3 or 4 activities, the business plan can improve. And in there is also where the islands have to be innovative. So the islands have achieved a lot of biodiversity because the evolution is providing a place where the change happens fast. So in the same way, if we like to be these natural labs for the European industry, we have to evolve fast. We have to provide the conditions in such a way that the companies could evolve their devices, could test not only the technology, but also their business plans. So that is a very important condition. And at the same time, I think it is important that at the European level, they can help us not only with the flag of the European, but also bringing all of us together, helping to have this market size that will be attractive for the company, and also supporting with some projects. The research labs needs resources and need help, not for the islands, for the companies that are creating this industry and that are fixing the jobs and are attracting the talents to the islands. So more or less, this is a general view. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present it here.
Thank you very much for the very dynamic presentation full of marine energy. The questions will come a bit later, and I'm sure they will come in abundance. Now, we will ask Patrick Clarence, Secretary General of the European Association for Storage of Energy, because the storage of energy is something that is very important in creating the solutions that will actually be able to meet the requirements and the needs of the market. Patrick, over to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I hope you had a good lunch like I did and you're now full of energy again. I want to present the storage topic here, and I will not go into all the details given the fact that we have some 7-8 minutes. But I want to show you that EASE as an association is pushing for energy storage as the missing link in all this energy transition we're having. EASE is an association, as you can see, of different companies. We do have research centers doing basic research. We're having companies doing cells, doing equipment, companies using this equipment, utilities. We're having distribution system operators, transmission system operators. You see, we have the whole chain. It can be sometimes very challenging to get to a common position, but once you have a common position, then it's very strong and representing the whole sector. So that's EASE. And EASE is trying to do 2 things mainly. The first is to make sure that we have a fair market design and therefore also a fair revenue stream for the services that storage is bringing. Because for the moment, energy storage is very often very fast and very accurate. It's remunerated the same way if someone reacts in 30 seconds, which is a total different value for the energy system if you're reacting in 30 seconds or milliseconds. But the remuneration is still the same. So there's a lot to do on market design. And obviously we saw that energy storage technologies are applied, they are there, they're economic, but they can become better, they can become more efficient, more energy dense, and also, therefore, we lobby strongly for research and development, and we work together with the research centers and with the European community, obviously, to devise these programs. Now we see if it goes in one way or the other. I will show you just some stories, some success stories, and you can see later on where I got them from. This is an island where they put down a lithium-ion battery storage. You heard this from Wilke before. Batteries with renewables, be it wind, are mainly used to get the consumption of fuel, of diesel fuel mainly in islands, down. So it will not replace very often completely the diesel fuel, but it is reducing a lot the consumption. We heard almost 50% of consumption less of diesel. That's huge. The cost to import it is therefore way low. On the second, we have in Borkum Island in the North Sea, we see that this is a hybridization of lithium-ion batteries with something which is even faster than the lithium-ion batteries, which are ultracapacitors. So they are doing the first heavy lifting before the lithium-ion batteries kick in, which keeps a longer longevity for the lithium-ion batteries and less degradation, therefore reducing the cost. On the next stories I want to show is one on the Faroe Islands. It's wind together with the batteries, again, to reduce the consumption and to increase the penetration of renewable sources. But if you want to go really further, you need to go to longer-term storage. On the right-hand side, on this Reunion Island, they are, on this island, if I'm not mistaken, they are importing the fuel with helicopters. I think it's not possible to get more expensive, this import of fuel. And there's a business case to not only reduce the consumption then, but to replace completely the consumption of oil. And this is done by using batteries with renewable generation, obviously, but also hydrogen. And you transform into this longer-term storage, which allows you to balance for several days the system. So you need to bring together different technologies if you really want to go the whole way, if you really want to decarbonize your system. And you could use this hydrogen either directly in some maybe existing gas engines or in other ways to balance your own system with your own renewable energy and becoming independent. This is what's happening now. We have had a big conference in Brussels last week. It was a nice conference. I was very happy. Mark Sheffield, the Vice President of the Commission, came and we handed him over this brochure which says the age of storage has only just begun. And we see it that it's just beginning because we're seeing that the renewables are now really brought about, and the missing link between the energy system and the renewables is the storage devices. So all the stories I told you and much more can be found in this little brochure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That will again be very important not to forget that generation is only one element, and that actually the grids and the storage have to be added in order to have the whole system sustainable over the period. Now, over to Anne-Marie Hansen, Project Manager at Equinor, New Energy Solutions. So coming into the new territory for Equinor, what have you achieved so far? What is coming?
Thank you. Thank you for having Equinor to this conference. You asked what have we done on Ireland so far, and embarrassingly enough, we haven't done so much for islands so far, but I think that I will like to explain why island markets are so interesting for us. I'm going to focus on our activities on floating offshore wind. And we are now also back to the sea. We have looked at a lot of maps today, and I like to think that for islands, what is the characteristics of islands? Well, it's a small piece of land, and it's a lot of sea around it. So let's see how we can use that area for energy purposes. So just to give you a context, so 80 to 60% of all offshore wind resources in Europe is actually into deep waters, where we need the floating wind technology to capture these resources. And also another important fact is that more than 50% of all the opportunities for floating is actually in Europe. So let's make Europe the place where we take advantage of this extremely good starting point and create not only clean energy, but also, like Joachim points out, synergies and job creation and industrialization. So back to the islands. Why are the islands so interesting for us? Well, we see that today we have heard that there is a strong need for more renewables on the islands. So we have a common goal, and we have a technology that we think can be deployed on islands already now. And why is that? The reason is that on islands the cost of energy is so high, so we are already competitive. So we can, there is such a great opportunity market, a great start for us to start on islands, because on islands we can offer a clean technology, an efficient technology that can create both synergies, job creation, industrialization, and at the same time we can deploy this technology at a competitive price. And I think that is a unique starting point for kind of both parties. I'm a bit embarrassed now because the other speakers were very good at this. Okay, so just to give you an idea of where we're coming from. So what have we done so far? Well, we started with floating offshore technologies all 10 years ago in 2009, where we put out the first full-scale demo off the coast of Norway. 2.3 megawatt Siemens turbine have performed very good, over expectations. And we see that the floating structure actually is very good for the turbine. It's less vibration and it has a very good both availability and performance. Then we deployed the Hywind Scotland last year, a bit more than 1 year ago. 5 turbines, 6 megawatt each, 30 megawatt. We could maybe call the UK the British Islands an island, so maybe we can say that we have done something for islands in that context. What we have seen so far is extremely high numbers when it comes to capacity factor. We have seen 68% several months in a row during this winter. So we see that this is a very promising start of this wind farm configuration. Now, where are we going next? I have already maybe revealed the secret a bit for you, because we are really looking into the island markets as one very interesting opportunity going next. We have also newly announced a project where we will plan to replace gas on oil and gas installations. You know that on these installations people actually live there, and we have operation which is energy demanding. So we plan to on these islands, we plan to replace use of gas with floating wind. So we plan to put out a park of 88 megawatt linked to 2 large oil installations on the Norwegian continental shelf. And then next potential markets can be the island markets for early deployment, but also markets in other markets in Europe, in the United States, and in Japan are interesting for us. So why are we here? Well, we are here in the Canary Islands because we have read the energy strategy of the Canary Islands Authority. We find it very good, and it very much fits with our ambitions. So we have started looking at an opportunity to plant a floating wind farm off the coast of Gran Canaria. We have collaborated with the University of Las Palmas, Gran Canaria, and they have calculated for us that significant job creation can be made out of such a project. And we believe that we have a world-class technology that both this community and also we as a company can benefit from. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, especially for bringing that aspect of the economy and sort of economical revival of where it brings the islands. This is something that is not an addition. That is also one of the underlying objectives that the transition has. Okay, now we will go over to the next speaker, Teresa Ruiz, who chairs the network of experts on island management systems at Euroelectric. Euroelectric is the association representing the electricity industry at a European level, so obviously this is the way to distribute and to manage the energy that has been produced. So my question to Teresa is, how is your organization active in the context of enabling clean energy transition on islands? How do you see this role evolving in the future, and how are you preparing for the integration of the renewables in the grid?
So thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for this invitation. I think it's a clear opportunity to bring up again the topic of island and energy that is always part of our business at Euroelectric. As you said, Euroelectric is the association who represents the industry, the electricity industry. Euroelectric decided that, as Dominique said this morning, if you have no vision, it's very difficult to go for a target and a result. So last year or 2 years ago, we just put in place a strategy where the power generation has to commit to reduce emissions. So we have to go and track what it was the target for 2020, 2030 and 2050. But the power sector have to do its role. But it's not only the power sector who have to do his job. It's also part of the job of the other sectors. So Euroelectric decided to do also a study on how to use this future electricity, who is going to be green, most of them coming from the renewables or green electricity, to use it in the best way. That is the famous study that Euroelectric released this year, on electrification. Here, I just put a slide. I'm not going to go too much on the detail, but I think it's quite appealing and quite clear what we have to do. Today, we are around 22% on the emissions. We have to go, if we believe on 2050, we have to go for 80, or 90, or 95. But that means that the electricity has to be green. Then we have to decarbonize the society by the electrifications. The figure in the other side is the target that electrification can give with this decarbonization. As you see, the ambition is enormous and it's a lot of work to do. But it's another aspect that perhaps in this panel that we were just talking about, green generation can be transmitted in what is the next. Of course, where are the sectors where the electrification can be a crucial role? We see transport. They have also to play a role in this decarbonization. We see the building as a sector with a lot of potential, and the industrial sector, heating, and so on and so forth. So this is my first slide, just to make clear that we go for green, but the rest of the sector must accompany all of us. So the second slide if I can manage. Is what happened in islands. This is beautiful because the previous report, it was not specific for island, although islands are equally treated in the report of electrification. We just have a look on islands, and we just released a report. It's back to 2017, and we said to our members, in Euroelectric, remember that all companies are represented, so we are not going to cherry picking any technology because all technologies are needed. Islands are unique. You cannot, as we said, typically copy-paste solution just everywhere. Each one has to define his electricity or his energy transition path, and then to decide which technology is the best suitable to give us solutions. I'm not going to go through all these examples. You can find all of them in the report that we have been published. Is the first one at Euroelectric. But there you can notice that all technologies have been considered. EV, storage, electrical mobility, kind of combination, hydro pump. I mean, all technologies can be used. But this is the beauty of the report. But let's be frank, there are also a lot of challenges. Islands are still depending, most of them, on fossil. They have to integrate massive penetration on renewables. So we cannot avoid that there are very important questions to resolve. How you secure the system, how the distribution operator can integrate all the renewables, how the new technologies, don't forget the customer, will be active. We are going to have self-consumption. We are going to have a lot of technology where the customer will be the one to design. So how we can do this really integration. So I just put the slides on the beauty, but let's be frank, there are a lot of work to do. This morning we have already listened about what are the challenges for many of the islands. And my last slide will be, on the recipe, the way forward looking, the Euroelectric is looking, is just only a very basic message, but as you can imagine, behind is a lot of work that has to be done. So this morning we listened already. If we don't engage all, when I say all, is all stakeholders, whatever is public, whatever is private, whatever is local, whatever is academia, has to be included in the debate. There are not one only technology who will resolve the problem, and there were not only one single player who is going to resolve the energy transition in the islands. Second, when we talk about all the sectors, means that, as I said already, in the electrification, all sectors have to be included. Transport, building, energy efficiency, future new technology. Third, we are not going to have one single regulatory regime, because of course we can make a framework where islands can be considered as different or special, but then local authorities, operators in the local islands have also to demonstrate that these solutions are fixed for the purpose. So it's needed a regulatory, a license, and a mechanism that allow this penetration or the huge penetration of the technology. And then come the other part of the story that for the moment we are not talking here is the future technology, the digitalization, the active consumer, who is going to make the aggregation, who is going to be part of the new model of decentralized system. We are going to have a lot of microgrids. Who is going to keep the system running when those disturbed technology will integrate in the system. So in each of these chapters, Euroelectric in the report give some example of how to treat these different challenges. So I think for the debate is more than enough, and I think we went through the main message of Euroelectric. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think you outlined also very, very well the challenges that are lying in front of all of us, so that we all have to work together, that the solutions can only be taken on the local level, but to do that there must be a lot of tools, a lot of possibilities that are available, and that the consumer is also an important part of the new system, because without decentralization we will come back to a situation when the best plans can never be implemented, that actually fail in nothing. So I think that flexibility, that openness of mind is indeed the idea behind the new system. Now, last but not least, we welcome Gaetan Kles, the European Affairs Manager at the European Engine Power Plants Association. Now, I mean, you're in a very difficult situation because your association, Eugene, represents producers of engines which are usually powered by fossil fuels. In that context, I mean, how do you envisage that you have technologies that could be at the service of decarbonization, in particular on islands, now or in the future? And what are actually the prospects of engines powered by renewable energies?
Many thanks. Hello, everybody, and thank you to the European Commission for this invitation to intervene today on behalf of Eugene, European Engine Power Plant Association. And I'm not in a difficult situation. I am in an interesting situation because I will have the opportunity to explain how engine power plants can contribute and have a big role to play in cooperation with other technologies. I think today's event has shown so far that islands are very different. So different situations, resources, and also there is no single technology which can be considered as a silver bullet, as Teosa has said just before. However, we have to acknowledge a special role to be played by viable renewables like wind and solar, which have made big progress in the last 10 years. Big progress concerning cost and concerning capacities. So it's very interesting now. We are in a situation where we have to combine the solutions. And this progress made by these technologies is important for the mainland Europe, but also and especially for islands where the natural resources are available in an abundant conditions. We have developed a concept as Eugene where we suggest as good solution to optimize energy supply and make clean, to develop viable renewables as much as possible, to increase the share of these technologies, but to keep in mind at the same time that they are viable, that there is an issue for security of supply for those islands which have not a steady supply of sun or a steady supply of wind. In that case, you have to add flexibility solutions in addition, which are, for example, storage and dispatchable generation. Storage in the form of batteries for the short term, but also thermal storage or power-to-X to produce hydrogen for the longer term storage, as Patrick explained. And you can use then this power-to-X, the hydrogen coming from power-to-X, in dispatchable generation. So our engine power plants are a good solution in combination with renewable fuels like biogas, syngas, or bioliquids. And so one specificity of our technology is the flexibility. Three types of flexibility. The size flexibility, because our technology is available from few kilowatts to several hundreds of megawatts, but also the operational flexibility. You can start engines within 2 to 5 minutes, so it's a great solution to backup renewables, for example, and also the fuel flexibility. As you said, in the past and so far, many islands have had a supply of energy thanks to fossil-based engines. But more and more you see renewable-based engines coming, and we want to support that, develop that, and we are a forward-looking association working on it. So we think the three steps are very important and need to be completed by the fourth one, which is the connection of all those technologies, for example, with a microgrid or has virtual power plants where you can manage all technologies in a remote control. So you can optimize the energy supply on the island. So we would advise the 4 different steps. And we think it's the best way to solve the sustainability, viability, and cost challenges for islands. Now, to go a bit deeper into how can engine power plants provide dispatchable renewable energy. So not the variable one, which are important, but you need also more and more dispatchable renewable energy, and engine power plants can do that. Actually, already today, you have engine power plants running on biogas and biomethane. You have more than 17,000 engines in Europe running on these renewable fuels, producing around 10 gigawatt electricity in Europe. They are running, most of them, as cogeneration or 3-generation units. It means providing power, but also heat or cold. For many islands, it can be interesting to have cold to get climatization. And they achieve more than 90% efficiency in that case. And you have many examples of biogas engines running on islands. For example, also here on Lanzarote, few kilometers away from Arrecife, you have an organic waste municipal plant where the methane produced by the organic waste is collected and used within the engine to produce renewable electricity and heat. But you have also many other examples, like sludge wastewater treatment plants in Greece, or in agricultural farms, in food industrial plants on the French islands. There are many examples. And we think also in combination with desalination plant. Tomorrow we will see a desalination plant. You have also possibilities to use biogas from waste to power engines and to solve this issue of the energy intensity of desalination process. So it's what we are already doing today, but we are also thinking about tomorrow and working a lot on how to use hydrogen in engines and related synthetic fuels. Actually now we surplus production of electricity from viable renewables. You can create green hydrogen thanks to electrolysis and then even transform it into synthetic fuels and store it or use it directly into internal combustion engines. And then you have dispatchable renewable energy. Then you have a solution for flexibility on both sides. When there is too much production from the viable renewables, then you create hydrogen, and if there is not enough production from the viable renewables, you can reconvert this hydrogen into electricity and heat, and it's a very good solution. So to sum up, we think islands could think about using hybrid solutions, and we are part of this solution as dispatchable renewable, and we are working a lot on it. And it's also a call to the European Commission and EU institutions to work on renewable fuels, renewable gas. There will be an initiative in 2020 from the European Commission on the gas market design, and we would invite the Commission to support the development of hydrogen from coal to gas. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. That finishes, in fact, that part of our panel. We have had a very fast overview of a number of issues, from the generation, sun, marine, wind, a bit of biogas, through distribution and storage, everything that offers the flexibility. And this is also the word that I think is very important. Now we have got time to go a bit deeper into some of the elements that were discussed here. I personally think this is the most interesting session of today. So I'm hoping that there will be a lot of questions. This is your opportunity to ask it now. Okay, who would be interested to ask a question?
Two quick questions on what we learned here today. Teresa, you said that it should be open, engage everyone. Everybody should be on these islands coming together, all actors, not only one single actor. Historically, you see that you have one predominant actor on an island. How do you see this working practically, opening to different actors, involving those new players, maybe new developers, and how you could do this? And I've got a question also for the hydro or marine power. You say you're developing and you're expecting some support for this development, financial support also, and others. We see that we have renewable energy sources like photovoltaic or wind, which don't really need any subsidies anymore. What is the added value from your technology? Why would you support your technology financially if there are other renewable sources which are also valid on the islands who maybe need less or no support? How is it going? Just to have something going.
Well, as you can imagine, in Euroelectric, you have representative of all technologies. You have representative from companies who are vertically integrated. You have companies who are completely unbundled. You have even companies who are just looking on the new business model. But the common point is, first, all of us, we have to decarbonize. Second, we are in a market. So we have to compete. Competitions has been always the way the technology goes down. Investment, silence investment come, and company invest. So islands are not different. They are specials. They are barriers. They are obstacles. But I promise to you, my own company, I work for a Spanish company, whose name is Endesa and is located in the islands, have clear vision that the future will be mixed of decarbonization. So what we are looking at as Euroelectric, new business models, new investment. I mean, not because I'm a company, I cannot look at aggregation, microgrids, how to integrate in. So I think that the answer to your question is, when I said involvement of everyone, it was not just only us, it was involvement of all sectors, all the actors. Why? I put just an example and I stop. Imagine a system where everything more or less is digitalized or is decentralized. Do you think that today we have the workforce, the trainee people who can cope with the challenge? So when I said involvement, I meant involvement because it's very, very, very easy to make those kind of presentations saying, wow, this is the future. But the reality is the system has to work. The line has to run all the time. People, customer, all of us, myself, we have to pay our bill. And perhaps could be much, much expensive because I choose for a system where decarbonization is the goal. So when I say involvement, is everyone, even workers. I mean, there are so many aspects in the electricity sector. So our plea is be careful when we make cherry picking, because technology today is one thing and tomorrow is pure business. So I don't know if I went a little bit further than your question, but I hope that it's a provocative answer.
Okay, so I'm trying to respond a question in relation with what kind of financial support you think that should have the different technologies. Of course, marine energy is not, or at least some of the technologies are not really yet to the market. So they need some support in the face of different mechanisms for support, depending on the TRL level, on the maturity level of those technologies. So some of them are still in the very open, very basic open research. So that should be supported with process that help research. Other ones are much more closer to the market. So they are trying to decrease the cost and trying to compete with the other ones. So I think that it's important, especially for the islands, what has been mentioned before, the flexibility question. So at the end of the day, I think that we have to find different combinations of different technologies. As I said before, the organization, what is having in mind is in 2050 have contribute 10% of the whole electricity market, not try to compete with the other renewables, just to help and to collaborate with the other renewables, and trying to adapt the technology to the different places where it makes sense. Maybe in places where it doesn't make sense because whatever reason. That is not. We are not arguing in favor of having in all of the places. But I think that it's quite important to keep the pace of the evolution of these technology, of marine energy technologies that shouldn't be kept in behind. And also, I think that it is important to understand the process that the markets make. As has been said before, I think that we have, especially in the islands, we have to understand and have a holistic view of the whole electrical and energy sector. Trying to understand what is the elements that could be used in favor of a fast transition. And of course, I think that the utilities are key players on that. And we have to work together with them in order to understand what is how this transition could happen at the same time that they keep the system stable. But definitely, I think that this kind of incentive is always carrot and stick. So I think that we have to work together. The companies have to make money from the process, but at the same time, we have to achieve the goal that we always have in mind. And at the same time, I think that we have to keep this flexibility, this biodiversity, in such a way that in different environments, different technologies can progress further.
I think what we are looking at here now is really how to define the fair playing ground for the market. I mean, it is not only the survival of the strongest. I think we are far beyond that. I mean, what we need is to have to be looking further ahead, and those who can look ahead and yet sort of take good investment decisions. These are the ones who are going to win, who are going to convince and win the market, not 100% market. This is not something that we are talking about. We are talking about thinking about the mix, thinking about the cooperation, and this is where I think we should all be looking into that. So at all the possibilities, okay, that are offered, that offer through flexibility, offer indeed stability for the market and for the consumers. I will perhaps once more ask. There are some questions. Okay. Do you have a second microphone? Yeah. Okay. Over.
Yes, I have a question for two of the speakers. One for the business case of St. Eustatius, and the other one for the electricity storage system as well. So, can we have a short overview of the electricity market organization on the small island, and especially there's maybe only one grid operator which decides on everything. So, is it the owner of the PV and storage system, or not? And who paid the final bill? And what is can we have an overview of the price on it? And then for the implementation of electricity storage system on the Iceland grid, what should be the key success factors, including in terms of regulation, to be put in place in favor of fair competition between the actors? I mean, not only the grid operator, but also to give some place to renewable energy producers.
We'll take one more question, perhaps.
Okay. Just a question to all of you that I was interested to hear what you had to say about the holistic approach and the coordination of the sectors and something that I also mentioned in my presentation to see that there is really a way to coordinate and also the strategic approach. What is it that we want to achieve at European Union level, how the legislation at member states level is happening, or how the regions and others are helping you develop the technology which is needed. What would be the one advice, the one piece of advice you would like to give to the public authorities so that the public and private cooperation you're suggesting would really be a successful one? What would it be? If you're thinking, what would be really that you need to actually make this streamlined way of delivering the goods for the public, because we all work for the public, and really having this strategic approach that would help. It's not be a piecemeal thing, that I'm doing something here, then I'm doing something else, but to have something that would really push forward in a way these renewables and this energy situation that would be really environmental friendly and effective. $1 billion question.
So to answer the first question regarding the business case of Synthestatios, the reason for the project was economical. So the utility, Stucco, was founded in 2013 after a split of the utility in Giebe on St. Martin with the split of the Dutch or Netherlands entities. And the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs inherited a structural deficit. I cannot give you any numbers because I signed NDAs and it was not published. I can just estimate. So the target was to cut fuel subsidies each year, and this is where the energy target came from. So for them, they invested also into a grid infrastructure, an upgrade on underland line and a fiber optic. They did this all together on Synthestatios. So I just know it's economical, that's the reason for it, but I cannot give you any precise figures on it.
I mean, we see some storage projects that they are made with the battery life, based on the battery life, which is something around 15 years, I would say, roughly, around this framework. And very often these projects are amortized at half of this time. So they're amortized over 6 years, 7 years, and you get already the payback from then you earn money. So it's really economical on a lot of systems regarding the cost. That's what we see in the projects. Regarding the question of new actors, non-new actors, who should own storage in your question, I mean, EASE is a very precise position on the ownership of storage. It says that ownership could be done should be done mainly for market players, by market players. So these are all market players, it's not a specific market player, and we heard Teresa also saying everybody should be active on this sector. The skills are needed everywhere, we need to utilize them. So it's open for everyone. And we also see that for a purely infrastructure service, if you have the choice of building a line or using a storage device, then we say that also regulated entities should have this choice and not be forced to build the line. So for pure infrastructure services, DSOs and TSOs, in EASE opinion, should also be allowed to own it. But then you come to the question on the economics and on the usage of this, because these devices can then not be used for market services, could not be frequency containment reserve, could not be backstop, not water control. So there you would need to develop what we call mixed business cases, where maybe a regulated entity is owning the device, using half the capacity for their peak, and giving the rest to the markets. So we see mixed business models, possibilities, but mainly it's the market who should, for market services, be active. And maybe if I can just, because I have the microphone, reply to the last question. This one piece of advice: as soon As you change existing systems and you go into new uncharted territory, you need to include everyone. All the skills as we learned, all the knowledge, the whole society. You need to look at the target. What is the target you want to achieve? And include everyone who can help you to achieve this target. And if you do not use this integrated approach, you will fail in a very likely case.
I will then start over question 2 and then question 3 for Joachim.
Okay, so in relation with the advice for the rules, I think that it will be very important to have a very clear rule. So the companies that if we like to attract marine energy, ocean energy companies, we have to have a very clear rules that they can follow. I think that it's important also that the network of the islands work together in order to have a specialized level for, if we like to have really to use the opportunity of the island as a living lab for the evolution of this process, we have to recognize that process at the European level, and we have to recognize that process at the national level. So it's important that in addition to working together the different territories, they have to have the recognition at their own countries with specific places for doing this kind of transition. So that's this special recognition have to have some impacts on the process that we spoke before, in the process in relation with the permits, with the consenting. So I think that the wonderful work that the network of the islands is already doing, and that has been presented this morning, have to be empowered at the national level in such a way that this process that they work together could be recognized at their own countries, and also at the European level with a specific kind of label that could allow them to evolve much faster, to evolve as a real lab, not just as a goodwill.
So first on the advice for public authorities, I think like to build on what Joachim said, I think that a clear framework that is transparent and stable is important for investors like Equinor, the company I represent, is and also to be able to align, so to use this island network. It's a very good network to take advantage of, to be able to align and to learn from each other, and to have a framework that is, it doesn't need necessarily to be equal, but it needs to be possible to access, and possible to understand, and possible to have a transparency, so that real good competition can happen. So those are just some key words. When it comes to strategic approach, I would just like to share with you the strategic ambition that was spelled out by Equinor about a year ago, and that was that 15 to 20% of all our expenditure investment shall now go to renewable investments in 2030. And I think that type of ambition, that to point the direction for this development is very important, and to remember that some of these technologies creates huge industries, and if we don't take the opportunity on the islands or in Europe, someone else will take that opportunity, and this industrial revolution and industrial adventure will happen in other markets. So that's important to have as a clear goal. So think big.
Thank you. Yes, we need all players, the big one to invest in more expensive projects, and also the small one, and it's good if The energy transition can also be driven by citizens investing in PV, or if farmers are investing together, few farmers investing in a biogas plant. So it's good to support also this citizen-driven energy transition. And what is missing is probably communication, information, and it's therefore very good to have this initiative by the Commission, and we thank Commission and the Secretariat of the Clean Energy for EU Islands initiative for organizing such forums. And we have seen study also from the Commission saying the potential for biogas is much higher than what has been already achieved. So we think with information, with support, with maybe also some financial support, and we can achieve a lot more than what has been done so far. Thank you.
So perhaps just to add a little bit on the last question, I think the Commission has introduced with the Clean Energy Package a governance regulation where member states must present the national plans on 2019. So next year they must be analyzed by the Commission. I think it's a great opportunity to have regulatory stability where investment can be made a long term. For Ireland, it is true that in the governance is not a specificity for Ireland, but I tend to believe that member states should also use this occasion to create frameworks which allow islands to go in the energy transition. Islands perhaps can go faster, but perhaps not. So it's not because it's ambitious what is coming in this case. The speed will come with investment, and if there are the stability and the willingness to invest, that things will come. So I think the national plans can be a good tool for the involvement of all the stakeholders.
Thank you very much. I would like now to close already this session. I think we have heard a lot of very interesting elements. I think what comes across is one of the leitmotifs of the session is the need for transparency, for better communication, for understanding where we are. And this is very important for everybody, for the companies, as much as for the citizens, as much as for the public authorities. And in that sense, the Commission is also very much expecting the national energy plans to come up, because they will give a lot of clarity to the whole of the member states. And we are also interested to see how much the specific characteristic of the islands will be represented. I mean, in some of them for sure, in some of the plans perhaps to a lesser extent. But this is still something that will allow us to look further forward. And as for the communication, I can just say that this is a call for the Secretariat of the Clean Energy for EU Islands initiative, because they are there exactly to put forward that forum, that platform for communicating, for taking joint initiatives. Now, I would like to ask you to join me in applauding all our panelists that have allowed us to look forward in the future while standing very much on the ground and being very, very pragmatic. Thank you very much to all of you.
La que está, tiene que ser, pero no que me vayas.
ladies and gentlemen, we would like to continue now our session, going through the presentation of the activities of the Secretariat. My name is Thomas Bose. I'm Director of Climate Alliance, and I'm speaking here on behalf of the consortium that is running the Secretariat that will be responsible for creating a platform for exchange. I'm very happy to hear from the previous session the words integration, synergies, and working with the different stakeholders, because these are the key principles that we would like to implement in this Secretariat. The launch of this Secretariat was some months ago in June during the Sustainable Energy Week. Maybe some of you have been there and heard about what we are planning. But maybe we can recall what happened since then. So my colleagues will say something about the practical things. Since then, we had one of the hottest and driest summer in not only in Europe, with heat waves also in Asia, especially in Japan, but also North America and North Africa. We had wildfires in Sweden, and wildfires are becoming the normal during the summertime. But we had also heavy rainfalls with floodings in Italy, but also in Mallorca, with 11 people dying because of the floodings and heavy destructions in infrastructure. So energy and climate have to go together and to see an integrated approach. But we had also the publishing of the IPCC report some days ago, reminding us that we have to be much more ambitious and accelerate our actions, like also Mr. Ristori highlighted in the morning. We have to accelerate our efforts. One of the important results of the Paris Agreement was also that the national governments alone will not be able to solve all the problems that we are having, not only with climate change, because climate change is a result of several other problems, economic, resource problems that we have. So we need an integrated approach, and we need an integrated and holistic work. And also one of the results of the Paris Agreement was that the national governments are invited to integrate and to ask and to invite the subnational levels, the actors on the subnational level, business, but also local authorities, civil society, to participate in the discussion of the development of their integrated national plans. So we need this integrative approach. And this is exactly what we would like to implement also in the Secretariat. And the basis for it is the Pact of Ireland and the Covenant of Mayors, who are based on these principles, working directly between the supranational level of the EU directly with the local level. I think this is an important model. And with this, I would like to hand over to the colleagues who will present a little bit more of the work of the Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas, and thank you for coming here today. It's been a pleasure to hear everything from so many different perspectives and so many different entry points to the same case and challenge. As Thomas said, I'm representing the Clean Energy for EU Islands Secretariat, which was started in in the early summer, and we have now had some months to sort of configure the Secretariat, and I will focus primarily actually on the more practical elements that we as a Secretariat will be carrying out in the next 1.5 years. that's already one challenge. Will come now. I had sort of a fairly long introduction prepared, but this introduction has actually already been we've already heard that several times in how the emphasis has been increasing on the islands and how the focus on islands have been have raised on the political agenda. And also both looking into sort of the challenges and certainly also the opportunities. I think we've already heard plenty of examples here, so I will not sort of echo any of the colleagues that were standing here before me. Obviously, sort of the Secretariat is the result of the hard work of the European Parliament, all the Islands Association that has been working on this together. With them as well, and that eventually led to the Secretariat here. And I'm going back. So, to put it very shortly, while sort of what is the Secretariat here for? I think. It is it seems like a simple task to facilitate the clean energy transition on Europe on Europe's islands from the bottom up. But as you can hear, there is a lot of people. There's a lot of stakeholders around, and we intend from the Secretariat side to ensure that there's a synergy between all relevant stakeholders on the ground in order to create the energy transition from below. We will have throughout from the Secretariat side, and what we actually also have seen today from our colleagues from the European Parliament, a specific focus on citizens, academia, local authorities, and businesses. As sort of the local drivers for developing what we call energy transition agendas. Because from the Secretariat and the experiences we have from the organizations behind the Secretariat, we have learned that it's important that all stakeholders understand, first of all, each other, but also their own responsibility in the energy transition. And as you can see here, I've just highlighted with some icons the partners involved in the Secretariat. You'll see up in the citizens part, we have resgroup.eu, which is the association of renewable energy cooperatives with more than 1,250 members, all spread all over Europe. We have the academia that's represented here today and in the Secretariat as part of the associate partner group, the University of the Balearics, and the Technical Educational Institute of Crete, which you will hear a little more from later on. From the local authority side, we have Climate Alliance, which I represent. We are a city network with more than 1,700 members. And we have been a sort of a key, a cornerstone of the development of the Covenant of Mayors, which also is tightly linked to the Pact of Islands since its very beginning. And we therefore have a very long history in collaborating with the European Commission on developing European and EU-wide initiatives. For the business part, we have 3E, which is our partnering the consortium with a strong expertise in the technological side that will be supporting primarily on islands with sort of technical aspects of developing their energy transition agenda. So basically, you can see that the agenda has flipped, but this is basically the team, and I would now like to give the floor to the 3 associate partners, which are located sort of scattered a little on the European map, with different experiences. Dimitris, if you would take the floor and tell us a little bit about the technical education.
Thank you very much, Jeppe. Good afternoon to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to thank deeply both the European Committee and also the consortium of this Secretariat for inviting us to be part of this effort towards rational development of renewable energy sources in European interconnected and maybe also non-interconnected islands. For us, in the consortium and also in my university, the Technological Educational Institute of Crete, it is a great opportunity to contribute and also to communicate our thesis, which are definitely in favor of the development not only of clean energy, but clean energy from local communities for the local communities. Allow me to tell you only a few words about the current situation in Greece, and especially for the Greek islands. Unfortunately, we experience not a very favorable condition, which has been created during the last 10 years, roughly, based due to an inadequate legislation, which allowed the massive submission of applications of large size in the small Greek islands. These applications raised serious reactions against the installation of these projects, and now we have a very critical, negative, common opinion against the installation of renewable energy sources in Greece. Not only against these large projects, but also against small and maybe rational and sensible projects. So, we consider this opportunity, this invitation to participate in this consortium as a big chance to correct this inadequacy, this wrong way we have taken. First of all, we have to stimulate local communities to be involved in this story of developing renewable energy sources. In Greece, we have an example. I was highly disappointed, allow me to say so, when during this morning session I didn't see Sifnos appeared in the slide presented by Mrs. Spiraki among the other Greek islands with considerable efforts already undertaken in the field of renewable energy development project development in their territory. So we have already this example initiated for the local energy cooperative, founded already 5 years ago. We like also the other islanders in the Greek, and not only the Greek islands, but in all islands in Europe to follow the example, the template of the Sifnos Energy Cooperative. Certainly, we have to convince people that renewable energy sources are not harmful once they have been sited and designed properly with respect to the size of each insular system and the local peculiarities met regarding both the environmental restrictions and the already existing human activities. We're also we're going to be involved in the technical support for the development and the design of energy transition agendas, not only for Sifnos but also for 26 islands in the European region. We're going to participate in the organization of workshops, webinars, aiming to the capacity building of the local communities, also to publications and to any effort that may move towards the direction of renewable energy sources exploitation in insular systems. I would like to say finally a few words, although I don't like to speak about myself and my university, but it seems that there is considerable experience on the development of hydrogen power plants in insular systems, and not only. Personally, I count already 15 years of experience in academic and consulting sector, and my laboratory, the Wind Energy and Power Plants Laboratory of the Mechanical Engineering Department in Crete, has a story that exceeds 30 years. So we have already some tens of publications in journals and conferences on hybrid power plants and renewable energy sources, on environmental impacts of these projects, on energy policy in islands. And personally, I have been involved, and maybe I was the main supervisor in more than 10 projects, real projects, regarding the development of power plants, hybrid power plants in islands, mainly in Greece and not only. Thank you very much.
Thank you also for this invitation to be invited into the consortium as associated partners in this project, or this secretary. There's a fine map there. My name is Rune Schmidt. I'm from a small local energy agency in Denmark on the Danish island Ærø. It's located in the southern archipelago of Denmark. It's a small island of about 90 square kilometers and only 6,200 inhabitants. So just to give you a picture of the island. This island has the past 30 years gone through a transition from 100% fossil fuel to about 60% renewable energy. And many of these projects that has been responsible for this has been initiated by local people, the citizens on this island. So that's what my organization is working with. That's the citizens, the people on the island, the local community, because we can talk a lot about technology, different kind of technologies, but for some of the most important thing is the technology also has to be implemented and social acceptance outside in the community, and also create some local some added value to this community. So that's how we that's our approach to projects. It's to we have been doing projects, wind projects, district heating projects, retrofitting of houses, but all projects has that in common, that it's developed together with the local community. It's not a big project developer from outside. It's the local community who have to gain some kind of value of these projects. And of course, we heard lower energy prices. That's very relevant, but that could also be other issues. So that's just how we are working. It's try to involve the local community, and by saying involve, I mean fully transparency in projects from the beginning. Also involve people and engage them in the process about the possibility to invest in projects, also to be owner of the projects. We have a lot of success in Denmark and also on our island to make the local community owner of the projects. So they also the local community they also get the benefits of selling electricity or could lower prices of heat and electricity. What more do I need to say? We are organized in a network of a lot of small local energy agencies in Denmark, with some of the other Danish islands, some Bornholm, but also energy agencies on the mainland, believe it or not. So we have a broad network about involving local community in how to organize these projects, look at the possibility for maybe local investors put money into the projects, maybe make local funds for the revenue for selling electricity that could create, maybe pay a new sport facility on the island. So you also have to look at these other values that this project can create, so you don't get this big, as we sometimes see, resistance against projects in the local community, because it's just a top-down approach where some developers are coming to make projects and the local community are not giving any value out of it. So that's how we will benefit in this consortium. I think that's it.
Thanks, Jeppe, for the invitation. My name is Damian Gomez. I am the director of the Interdisciplinary Laboratory on Climate Change of the University of the Balearic Islands. The laboratory joins about 70 scientists working on many different aspects of climate change. Not only people working on the energy sector, but people working on the climate itself, people working on economics, we have lawyers, we have people working on the impacts of climate change, particularly in islands. And I'm saying that because somebody said this morning that we are not here to discuss about applying or not the energy transition, but to discuss how. But perhaps in the Balearics we are in a preliminary stage, because there is a very strong debate on the deployment of new energy sources and the landscape preservation. So it's not as straightforward as it seems sometimes to deploy all these solar plants and windmills, at least in the Balearics. In this line, one of the missions of the laboratory is to bridge between the academia and local government and the different social and economic sectors, and trying to convince them about the need to implement these new energies. In this respect, for instance, we have collaborated with the regional government in an assessment report. It is a prospective report for 2030, trying to design the guidelines of the governments, the present government and the ones that will come later on, and to try to design, as I said, guidelines that do not depend, for instance, on the political change. And one of these main guidelines is on the energy transition. Another activity, for instance, is we organized last week a forum. We joined more than 200 people from many different sectors, economic, social, academia, government, again trying to bridge the gaps. I mean, we sometimes notice that we are speaking different languages, and that is not always easy to understand each other. At the international level, we have recently been admitted as an observer organization to the United Nations Framework Convention, so we will participate in the next COP meeting in Poland. And of course, when we were asked to participate in this Secretariat, we were happy to contribute. Our experience with island communities, we have, I can say, two experiences. One is with what is called the Climate Change and Energy Transition Law, which is nowadays being discussed and being debated in the Parliament of the Balearic Islands. It is a very important law because it is supposed to design the framework of all the energy transition in the future. So we have been assessing the government with scientific knowledge and with legal knowledge on how to design that law. On the other hand, we also collaborate with a bottom-up initiative which is being developed in Minorca. Minorca is probably the most advanced island in the Balearics in this respect. They carried out a very, very accurate diagnostic on greenhouse gas emissions, for instance, and they have designed the roadmap. Now, what is missing still is the implementation of that roadmap. We are assessing them again in different aspects. They should be here, by the way, but perhaps you know that last week a storm damaged the electrical network of the island. Minorca was in the past connected with Mallorca in a single electrical system, but the cable broke 2 years ago. It was not replaced, so now Minorca depends on a single plant. The electrical net crashed because of the storm, and more than 80% of the population was in a blackout for 4 days. So now at least The useful aspect was that there is a strong debate in the island nowadays about not only the sustainability of the energy generation, but on the safety of the electrical network. How can we contribute to the Secretariat? Doing more or less what I've been talking about, bridging between academia, transferring the knowledge, trying to join different people, different stakeholders, and yes, more or less like that. So that's what I had to say.
Yeah, so as you can hear, we are sort of a broad group with different expertises from different locations as well. That will be supporting us on the way. So I'll try to explain a little bit about our visions about building this EU-wide community for islands. We've heard a lot of people from different locations in the EU with different entry points, and one of the Secretariat's roles are to enable to build a platform where all these interests towards the same goal, basically, of decarbonization can sort of be put together and create this synergy that's so important for moving forward. We, as you can see here, we're trying to explain this with the Secretariat, that it's combined, sort of supported by our associate partners, but that's far from all the expertise that is needed here. We have, as we have been talking about before, there's already plenty of very strong associations with a lot of capacity, a lot of resources, experience and expertise if you look at the European map. At the same time, you also have individual islands that have a lot of very, very good examples. And we see the Secretariat, one of the Secretariat's main tasks is to connect these dots in order for those that have implemented the very good examples to show that to those that actually has the will to become sort of the next the next good example. And we believe that with by building this community, not only offline by events like here where we are meeting and getting a much better understanding of positions and eventually oppositions, as we also heard towards things like renewable energy sources, for instance, that we can move forward with a better understanding of everybody. And hopefully we will at one point see islands that will be sort of in terms of resources sort of bubble much more than the Secretariat and the associate partners ourselves. And how do we intend to do that practically? We will offer, in order to get this snowball rolling, technical support, capacity building, or general capacity building, as well as this community engagement to sort of tie all the dots together. Practically, the technical support we will be providing throughout this contract is 6 co-authoring of clean energy transition agendas, what you might also have heard of as being 6 pilot islands. And at the same time, sort of providing guidance to islands that has the interest in developing their clean energy transition agendas. Not in this case co-authoring, but more like guidance and assessment of the good efforts that are done on these islands. At the same time, we are offering approximately 20 pre-feasibility studies for individual clean energy projects. And furthermore, we're planning on providing sort of support to assistance for the preparation of individual clean energy projects. So you can see there is kind of the 2 first parts is more general on the plan, and the lower two parts here is more directly on sort of pushing forward either project ideas or further refining existing projects for implementation. The 10 assistance, the 10 sort of assistances for the preparation of the project can both be in terms of technical but also financial advice on building the right financing concept to enable the implementation. I'll touch a little bit more on this a little later. For capacity building, we will be together with the island communities hosting thematic workshops and webinars that will be focusing on the financing part, the community engagement, as well as sort of the more specific project development exercises. At the same time, we will also provide sort of exchange with peers and experts. What you can also see is like basically this is sort of the more practical connection of the dots we're talking about here, as we will have we will try to have the grand overview of the community, meaning that if one island stakeholder might have a specific question, we will eventually be in a position to hopefully provide examples or contacts to somebody who have been in a similar position and managed to overcome a challenge, for instance, or provide another perspective on a specific activity or challenge. And obviously, we will also provide a set of sort of guiding publications. One of the first things we will be developing, or that's under development already, is sort of a more general guidebook for making the island-wide clean energy transition agendas. So, in terms of the activities within community engagement, we will, as I said, not only have offline activities like we're having here, where we're meeting all different stakeholders involved in the energy transitions on islands, but we also intend to back all our offline activities with an online engagement platform where islands themselves can see can get access to supporting organizations, other islands that might have specific expertise in what is exactly needed, in order to sort of also enable islands to themselves to explore the options for support. Preferably or primarily, we are looking to strengthen the support from regional and national contacts, as we believe that sort of the closer you get, the closer you can find your support, the more precise this support is, and the more the expert or the organization is aware of the very context. As we know that we've also already heard now that there's a very broad variety of contexts when it comes to islands. Also when it comes to islands, I think it's basically everywhere. At the same time, we will have the network working events where we'll also take part in activities, in existing European activities, events, etc., where we will ensure that we create debate and debate about the clean energy for EU islands and the challenges and opportunities for transition plans, and also ensure sort of other stakeholders to sort of know about the initiative and hopefully also get on board the community. Last but not least, I think it's important that we also ensure that we have a very sort of a front door to the Secretariat, which is our help desk activities. Basically, our help desk can be considered as kind of a switchboard, meaning that you can approach us via email or telephone, and depending on the request you are having, we will be able to connect either internally in our secretariat, or maybe we'll advise you to get a more detailed answer from other members of the community. As mentioned. And we therefore invite everybody that might have questions not only after this session, but also in general related to the Secretariat to contact us via this switchboard here, which is info@euislands.eu. So that's sort of the establishment of the establishing the Secretariat, and obviously we don't stop here. We're busy and we have plenty of activities to do in the future. And one of the main things that we will be focusing on now and the next coming 2 months is doubling the amount of pilot islands. We have the island of Signos, the island of Tres, and the Aran Islands that has been pre-selected due to the fact that they can provide practical information that is useful from different contexts and different situations when we are developing our guidance material, so that it will not sort of only be a synthetic methodological book, but there will also be sort of actual examples to refer to. And we have the announcement of the call for applications for the next and the final 3 pilot islands, which has opened today. The application, we have application forms online that can be submitted until the 15th of January. And you find it on our brand new website that was launched yesterday. Some of you might already have visited, we hope so, otherwise you're more than welcome in there. All information about the call for applications can be found on our website. The applications will be evaluated with selection criteria that you can also find on our website. We are selecting, as mentioned, 3 pilot islands, but out of the applicants, we will also be including the 20 other advisory activities to islands. That means that we, with this call for application, will basically be covering support, dedicated support for 23 islands. At the same time, we are also working on, we've heard the experiences from the Pact of Islands and the commitments that are made. In the coming months, we will also building on the concept of the 4 different stakeholder groups. We will also sort of build the architecture around formalizing commitments for islands, so that islands in the future can say that they are officially parts of the Clean Energy for EU Islands initiative. But more about that later. So to draw a conclusion, I have to say I'm very happy to stand here, but I'm even more happy to hear all the things that we've heard today, because it's very clear that despite very different entry points, there is a general very, very strong support. It obviously brings a lot of weight on our shoulder, and it's a good challenge, and we are very happy to take this one upon us. And sort of as a final remark, I'm very happy to have everybody in this room on board in developing the initiative further, and we will obviously do as much as we can to let the snowball roll as fast as possible. I suggest that we have some few questions, if there are any clarifications that might be needed for what I presented here. I think 2 or 3 questions, but I would also invite you to continue this question and answer session in the Casa de la Cultura tonight during our cocktail. And you should not only approach me, you should certainly also approach all the other colleagues, not only the three sitting here, but if you, can I make my colleagues stand up in the crowd? We have Achim, and there's Miriam, we have Maya a little further up, and Patricia should be somewhere here as well. So please, let's have a very brief Q&A session now, and let's have a little longer and maybe sort of social extended Q&A session after the official program here. So, any questions? Or was I crystal clear? All right. Well, it's been a long day, but we're not completely done here. So I hope that anyway, I might approach some of you based on what some of the speakers have said previously tonight. And you're, as I said, welcome to meet us later. Talking about meeting, we will now have a coffee break, but this will be followed by our roundtable discussions. I think it's more likely to call it, it's more precise to call it sort of circle discussions, as we will form here on stage 4 different circles related to our 4 different stakeholder groups, as you've seen before, meaning public authorities, citizens, academia, and businesses. And I would like you to make a small exercise, sort of thinking about yourself and thinking what kind of stakeholder groups do I belong to, and that stakeholder group you belong to, I advise you not to go and visit this table. We will have two different rounds. So let's say I represent public authorities. I would like it's far more interesting for me to go and listen to talks and examples from collaboration with academia and businesses than sort of hearing more of what what I know a lot about before. This also feeds very much into our sort of our core concepts of a better understanding leads to better results in the end. So I hope that after the coffee break you will come back here, and you will then have to enter the stage, and there will be 4 hosts welcoming you with signs representing each stakeholder group, and you choose a first and a second circle to join, and we will then have approximately 15 to 20 minutes in each circle where examples will be shared, both good and bad, and hopefully we will get a little bit better understanding of some of the stakeholders that are so important to collaborate with in order to fast forward the energy transition. So by these words, I would say enjoy the coffee, and I'll see you all on stage in approximately 15-20 minutes.
Hello.
Hi.
Muy bien.
Bien.